Thank you. Call to order the February 2025 meeting of the Federated City Employees Retirement System. We will do the roll. Vice Chair Chandra.
Here.
Trustee Abbott.
Here.
Trustee Avasti.
Here.
Trustee Faulkner.
Here.
Excellent. Trustee Jennings.
Here.
And Trustee Linder.
Here.
And the chair is here. We have a full complement.
Excuse me, Chair. We need to qualify Trustee Faulkner under the Traditional Brown Act teleconferencing rules.
Yes, please.
Trustee Faulkner, are you appearing? You are appearing by the Traditional Brown Act teleconferencing rules. Are you teleconferencing from the address 109 Tuckerman Avenue, Middletown, Rhode Island, zip code 02842?
Yes, that is correct.
Is the location from which you are teleconferencing ADA accessible and open to the public?
Yes.
Have you posted the agenda on the exterior of the location where you are teleconferencing from so that members of the public may see the agenda?
Yes.
If any member of the public wishes to be heard by the board from the location from which you are teleconferencing from, can they be heard?
Yes.
Trustee Faulkner is qualified under the traditional Brown Act's teleconferencing rules to participate in this meeting. All votes today must be taken by roll call vote.
Thank you, council. See, we have no orders of the day, no need to waive sunshine. At this point, I will take public comments from anyone who wishes to speak on a matter that normally is under the purview of this board, but which is not otherwise agendized. Is there anyone here or online who wishes to speak? Seeing none, we will proceed. Well, actually, before closed session, it's a bit unusual, we have a ceremonial item today, it seems. And you know that because Vice Chair Emeritus Julie Jennings has appeared in person. She's come down off the mountaintop. She has been my, can you be a wing chair? You've been a wing woman and vice chair my entire time as chair. And except for one or two meetings, one meeting with Trustee Chandra. And she is retiring from the city and thereby retiring from the board. And so we do have a small token of appreciation to present to you. This is for Julie Jennings, in appreciation of steadfast and conscientious service to the San Jose Federated City Employees Retirement System Board of Administration as Vice Chair and Trustee. Resolved this 20th day of February 2025 by unanimous vote of your colleagues on the board. So we present this to you.
Oh, Chair, would you mind just
Yeah, you broke the selfie rule, Spencer.
Maybe stand by the wall. Or
Trustee Faulkner, you're in the picture. That was very strategic of you. Well played to be on Zoom tonight, or today.
Photobomb by Mega.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And it's been a very educational process. I've enjoyed it. Some people might go, really? But I have. I am honored to be around so many people who are so knowledgeable and have taken me up through the ranks, just teaching me all there is to know about the pension, the investment, the security of it, the legality of it. You all have made this a very enjoyable, enriching time for me. So, and I know that I'm leaving in good hands. So, with the team and with the ORS team that supports us, who I greatly appreciate. So, thank you very much.
Trustee Jennings, you've been a noteworthy member of the board. I think we all realize that. You've made a strong impression on so many areas that we've had to deal with over the last, I think, 5 years you've been on the board, almost quite.
Yeah,
You
something
came
like that,
in,
3, 4.
Only
four.
1 or 2 sessions after I
Yeah.
came on. Obviously teaching us an awful lot about the perspective of city employees and plan members who we are here to serve, after all. Your voice will be missed, and I trust that you will weigh in from time to time as a retiree member.
Maybe.
When necessary.
I have learned a lot more. Bapu helped me quite a lot. He recommended a book ages ago that I did read. And you know what I learned from that? Even the best of the best don't really know exactly what they're doing. And
I was hoping you wouldn't get that.
oh, yeah. And that sometimes, so having a good asset allocation model, having it secured in a trust, looking at it in a 20-year time zone, you know, all of these things are super important. And I feel secure that our pension will be there and that we're moving in the right direction, and that both our retiree and our employees and the members at large will protect it with the coming times, which is much more in flux as government is maybe not seen as a partner, but as something to get rid of. So thankfully, our money is in a trust.
Any other trustees would care to?
I just wanted to thank you for your service. It's been a pleasure working with you, and you've taught us, your prodigious knowledge of the city has been invaluable to us. So you talked about learning from us, but I feel like we've learned at least as much, if not more, from you. So, and I'm grateful we became friends.
Yes,
So.
yes, and I'll continue that.
Thank you, Julie, for your incredible contributions. I was a part of the audit committee and
Yes.
disability committee, so your institutional knowledge has been immensely helpful in for the board and for all of us to make the decisions. So as you embark on this new chapter, I wish you all the best and congratulations for a wonderful career here in the city, outside, and congratulations on your retirement. We have very hard to fill shoes, I believe.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I think Julie and I got to work during the turmoil of the last year. She became my whisperer.
Did
That
she
was-
whisper?
I was the bad cop, he was the good cop.
She was also, we would drive together.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
And of course, I knew Julie before I was on the board back in San Jose. And I did say she's a legend in her own time, and it is true. She's really valued as a union leader, as an employee, as a manager, as a leader inside a department that I loved working for, the Parks, Recreation, Neighborhood Services. It just meant a lot to me to have her there to talk with about these things. So, thank you, Julie. And your smile's never been brighter.
She does seem especially happy
Although
now that
I do
she's
have to say,
retired.
yesterday, IT decided to turn off my access.
Oh,
Okay, yes. And all of a sudden, Zoom went away, then Teams, then email, and I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And then, I had to try to get, so I have a cell phone, right? So I got my employee, who happened to be in the office, to go up to the help desk. And guys, and my employee told the help desk, it was like, Julie is a workaholic and you cannot turn her off. And I told the
3-1.
guy, I said, you have to keep my access to the very last day, which is March 1st, which is
Right.
a Saturday, so that I can still work on February 28th.
That's how it goes. And we'll see whether you fail retirement as well as I have.
Yeah, that'll be a challenge, I think so.
Well, Julie, I also wanted to say that I really learned so much as a relatively new member of the board. And all the things you spoke about and shared, both from a board perspective as well as a union perspective and employee perspective, really helped expand my knowledge. And I have to say, it's so good to see you when you come in person, rather than just being
Here, here.
a wonderful vision on Zoom.
Yeah, on behalf of staff and especially the investment team,
Yeah,
uh,
there you go.
yeah, well, I want to thank you, Julie. It's been a pleasure knowing you and your frankness and outspokenness. I really appreciate over the years. You've spoken your mind on all issues.
Yes.
And we appreciate that. And what you see is what you get with you.
Yes.
There's no hidden agenda, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And you've been a big supporter of staff, and time and again. And you took governance very seriously, but you also recognize staff's expertise. And truly, truly grateful for that. You will be missed, and we hope to see you at the Retiree Association meetings.
Yes, I did sign up for that.
Yes.
I don't know if I'll go to all those meetings, but I did sign up because I think it's important to support it, just like it's important to support the union. And I do have to say, guys, I was not a union. I did not grow up in a union family. It was not my thing. I was like a yuppie with a professional parents who, it just wasn't my thing. I got brought into it, and realize that employees have a voice. And a voice is always important. Speaking my mind was never a problem for me. As a young child until who I am now, it's just who I am. And so maybe toning it down was probably more important than anything. So I think all people, male, female, should express themselves as much as possible in a professional way. And I think by doing that, we support what we are here to do. So I emphatically go there. But thank you, Brocco, so
Of
much.
course.
Your group is wonderful, and you have been great, and I've been honored to learn from you.
Thank you.
Let me echo Prabhu's thanks from the staff. But for me personally, I've only been able to know you for a few months, and although I feel like I know you longer because I've listened to so many meetings prior to coming here, and I don't think it's an understatement that says that you have a loud voice on this Federated board, and I don't mean just volume. I mean the weight of your thoughts and your words, I think, carry a lot with this board, and you've created very big shoes to fill. And I just want to, thank you for some of our frank conversations that we've had in that short period of time.
It's sensing a theme.
No, it's
Not a problem here.
it's refreshing to cut through the chase and let's talk about what's really on the table. So, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Is she an honorary East Coaster? Is she that
I
fun?
think
Oh,
that's
yeah.
the thing. Right?
Oh,
We got two New
I
Yorkers
knew
and two
before you
East
told me you had roots on the East Coast.
Yeah.
That you were East Coast.
Maybe instead of the plaque, we should have got her a Mets hat.
Yay.
Yeah.
And if you ever wonder what it is we do here, we do all of this so that we can start paying Julie's pension. That's right.
Yes.
We're gonna start collecting after investing for 3.5 years.
Yes.
In retirement, I hope you finally come out of your shell and begin to assert yourself a bit more. Well, with that, thank you all, and thank you again, Vice Chair Jennings. Call you by the title you've had for most of your term here.
Yeah.
And with that, I think we need to move to closed session.
I think so.
Councils, do we have something to report out of closed session?
Yes. So We do have a reportable action on item 1A from closed session. The reportable action is that the board authorized legal counsel to sign a common interest privilege agreement with the other city charter retirement plans. That motion was made, and it was, the votes in favor of it were Chair Horowitz, Trustee Jennings, Trustee Faulkner, Trustee Linder, Trustee Chandra, Vice Chair Chandra, apologies, Trustee Abbott. The noes was Trustee Avasti. There were no abstentions. And there is a second reportable action for closed session item 1A, which is that there was a vote and motion for the Federated Board to join the Police and Fire Board to file the amicus brief as presented in the Lacera litigation. The motion was supported by the following yeses: Chair Horowitz, Trustee Jennings, Trustee Faulkner, Trustee Linder, Vice Chair Chandra, and Trustee Abbott. The noes was Trustee Avasti. And in terms of the item 1B from closed session regarding the Sharivar litigation, there was no reportable action. Thank you.
Thank you. So I do have a note here that we do need a vote on items 1 and 2. Agenda item 1 is an application for a change of status to service-connected disability retirement. Are there any discussion points on this item, or it's a simple approval?
I move to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, any public comments? Seeing none, we will vote. Trustee Faulkner?
Aye.
Trustee Jennings?
Aye.
Trustee Abbott?
Aye.
Trustee Linder?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chandra?
Aye.
And Chair votes aye.
Did you call me?
Did you forget Trustee Avasti?
I called.
Oh, I'm sorry, Trustee Avasti, you were there at the end. A little out of my purview.
I would aye.
You vote aye as well, thank you. My apologies. Haven't had enough coffee. Item number 2 is a rescission of application for a change of status.
So I'll make a motion to approve the rescission.
Okay, and do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Trustee Linder. Any discussion, any public comments? Seeing none. Trustee Avasti?
Aye.
Trustee Jennings?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chandra?
Aye.
Trustee Abbott?
Aye.
Trustee Linder?
Aye.
And Trustee Faulkner?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, so those are approved. So now we are on to the consent calendar. And just a reminder, we always kind of blow right through these, but any trustee can pull any item from a consent calendar if you feel it requires further deliberation and a specific vote. And in fact, as part of our consent calendar, under items 310, we do have 4 items where the city has made some minor changes to the city policy manual, and we are going to approve those under the consent calendar, unless anybody feels we should pull that for separate consideration.
Would it be appropriate for me to make a comment? I think it's important that you understand the process before it gets onto the consent calendar. When ORS is made aware that there's been a city policy change, we do an internal review to see if there's anything of a concerning nature. Most of the time, there are small nuance changes. I think one of the policies in last month's meeting was they changed $30 to $35 for employee recognition programs as an example of the type of changes that we're talking about. Sometimes there are law changes that have more to do with HR than they do with really retirement administration. And so when we decide that we don't think there's any concern, we're going to send them to the consent agenda. If there is a policy that is concerning or is a policy that ORS has decided to augment and create its own version of the policy, we will then direct that to the governance committee before it even comes onto the board's agenda. And then that would show up in new business. So if it's on the consent agenda, it's what ORS staff is considering a minor update.
Okay. So with that said, is there a motion to approve the entire consent calendar as agendized?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
I second.
I'm going to give,
You can go.
we're going to give that to
Yeah,
trustee
give
Abbott.
that
That's a second from
trustee.
trustee Abbott.
Yeah, yeah.
And if there is no further discussion or public comments, we will roll call. Trustee Faulkner?
Aye.
Trustee Avasti?
Aye.
Trustee Jennings?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chandra? Aye. Trustee Abbott?
Aye.
Trustee Linder?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. We're now into agenda item 4, death and survivorship. We'll observe a moment of silence for those who have served the city and who have passed. Okay, thank you very much. We are now on to investments. Item 5A is an oral update from our CIO, Mr. Polani.
Thank you. The deep state is trying to silence you.
You need mine.
No, I think they like you. You know, I mean, it's investments, right?
Thank you. It's on
You're
now.
in the know.
All right. Well, we have a couple of items, but before I get to the item, as always, estimated performance. As of Feb 18th, the pension plan was up 5.44% fiscal year to date, and the healthcare trust was up 6.53%. And I'm happy to take any questions on that,
Any-
on the
Any
performance.
questions from trustees or from the public? Okay. Just gonna pause for a second. Should we contact Pam directly, or should we just-
Thank you.
I
It
should
just
kind of-
keeps turning off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Washington doesn't come down when-
I think they meant to give that to me.
Oh, it does say Anurag at the bottom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Even paranoids have enemies sometimes, so
Yes.
it is possible they're after you.
So moving on to 5B and 5C.
Mhm.
So this, I will let multiple people talk on this, Mr. Chairman,
Okay,
with your permission, but
Sure.
I will just introduce the item. We have both our consultants online. I believe we have Eileen and Laura online. Dinesh unfortunately had a family health situation, but he is also online to answer any questions.
okay.
So when we undertook the current, the last major governance project for investments was in 2018. And so the last major revision to the investment policy statement was 2018. And at the time, staff got delegation of authority for investing, for picking managers. And there was a carve out for venture capital. And the reason for that was it was a new asset class for us. This was the first time that staff was actually evaluating venture capital managers. And it was felt that there was a lot of knowledge among trustees of both boards who could actually help staff in making those decisions. And so 7 years on, we felt that it was time to get delegation of authority for VC as well. We've had multiple conversations on this over the past couple of years. I know the board chair has expressed some comments in favor of delegation. The IC chair has. We've spoken to other IC members, and we've also have had extensive discussions with both our consultants to make sure that it's consistent with best practice. And so what you see in the attachments today are basically the language that was used by the Police and Fire Board in granting us a delegation of authority. This happened, I would say, maybe a year and a half ago. And so it is now being brought in front of this board. And happy to take questions. And I don't know if anybody else has anything to add to it.
I did just want to add, as my understanding is items 5B and 5C relate to the same authority. We're simply modifying two separate documents to reflect the proposed change.
That is correct.
So
yes.
the concept, the idea is the same carrying through.
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct. I'll just comment that our CIO is correct that I am in support, and this was done one-on-one because we didn't have a chance to have a most recent committee meeting, but in past committee meetings, both committee members have been supportive, and I believe they've individually reconfirmed that support to the CIO recently. There was one thing that I thought of yesterday,
Yep.
well after this had been submitted. Do we have any constraint on size? Because I believe you have up to authority under our charter of 1% of the overall plan in any specific manager.
I believe it's, actually, Dinesh, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's 2%.
It's 2%, yeah.
Yes.
And just for this asset class, given it's 4% of our overall allocation and the nature of the program we built, 1% could be sizable, and we might just want to address that specifically for this asset class. I don't know if we can wordsmith it now, or you want, if we can do that, I would love for,
Sure.
hint, hint, Mariah and Maytak to help us come up with something, and then maybe the board could weigh in if they agree or disagree with that concept.
Yeah, I mean, I think this language is just sort of a placeholder. This is what the police and fire board did. I think you're within your rights to change that with the help of council here. And I'm totally open to it. I'll certainly have Dinesh speak to it as well. And we have both our consultants online.
Yeah, and just to clarify for the board, what I'm referring to is not having the venture capital program inadvertently, and we will have new CIOs and staffs in the future, so thinking way far ahead, write 2 very large checks to 2 managers to fulfill the 4% allocation, and then we don't have proper diversification.
Yeah.
That's basically
Yeah.
the boundaries
Sure.
that I'd like to think through.
If Dinesh is online, can we have him clarify
Yeah,
what it
please,
is?
please, by all means.
So currently for delegation of authority, there's 3 limits that we have. So first is a strategy limit, which is 15% of plan. The second one is a pacing plan-based limit, so up to 150% of the annual board-approved pacing plan. And the third limit, which is what you were alluding to, is the transaction limit. So there's a limit, depending on if it's the first commitment to an existing, first commitment to a new manager, that's 2% of plan. Follow-on commitment to an existing manager is 3% of plan, and a secondary investment is 1% of plan. So those are the limits that apply to all of the other private asset classes under delegated authority. And if you were to feel there should be a 1% limit, I think within that table we could add a venture capital specific limit where it could be 1%.
Recording in progress.
In terms of dollars.
I'm sorry, say again?
So 1% translates to what in terms of dollars?
I was gonna ask the same thing.
Yeah, I believe it's, Dinesh, I think it's about 2 billion now, the plan size, roughly.
The plan size is about 3 point.
Sorry, 3 billion. Yeah,
come
well,
on.
yeah, sorry, yeah.
Did you
It was two-
misplace
it
$1
was-
billion?
It was 2 billion when I joined. Thank you. It's now 3 billion.
You gave me a heart attack there.
Short-term memory. First go.
Yeah,
So
So
that'd be 30.
300 million?
Yeah.
30,
no,
30
million.
million.
30
million.
30.5
Yeah,
million.
Okay.
yeah.
So the market value is like 34 million right now, right, for the venture capital?
The
Well,
market value.
4% is the total allocation.
We're at about 150,
Yeah.
roughly.
150?
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah, so that would allow any one investment to be 30. I mean, it's not the end of the world, it's a little bit big. 2% would be 60.
2% would
Yeah.
be 60, yeah, yeah.
You want to cut it down further?
And
Do you want to cut it further down?
I have a suggestion, right? I
One
mean,
would be fine by me.
Yeah, I mean, instead of, I think the 1% or whatever number you want to put in, just in keeping with best practices, and I'll have Laura and Eileen speak to this as well. We can certainly have the 1% limit, like we have 2% for private equity, 1% for venture. And a lot of it really should come to more policies and procedures that staff follow, and which is actually shared with the IC. And so I think guidance from the IC on what you expect the size to be, I think would be a better way to deal with it than to actually have hard numbers in the IPS.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've been evaluating both Veris and your staff and Makita best practices among other large public pension plans. And, I think best practice is to have limits that you discuss with your staff, that you approve in pacing plans that are used, and sort of understood by everyone. The point to the investment policy statement, in my opinion, is to have sort of broader limits, and you don't want a situation where someone from the public or the press, or you have the headline risk of someone playing gotcha, because there's a denominator effect. We have another global financial crisis, global equities decline, and then the amount that you have in private markets that can't be changed as quickly becomes a bigger percentage of the plan. So in my opinion, it makes sense to have wider limits in the investment policy statement, but then an understanding with your staff that you approve in pacing plans about more stringent limits. And I'll mention that, the delegation of authority to staff for venture capital, my understanding is that it will work the same as all other private asset classes. Right now, Makita writes a concurrence memo, and our research team evaluates every private markets investment that staff asks us to. And they also, those memos include the amounts typically that are going to be allocated. So there are other, checks and balances outside of the investment policy statement on sizing.
I'm actually moved by that, but I would love to hear what Eileen has to say as well.
Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. I think to echo a little bit of what Laura said, the IPS is a roadmap. It is a document which articulates the board's decision-making process at a strategic level, as well as the broad roles and responsibilities. So it is meant to articulate how investment decisions are made at a high level by the main fiduciary, use the board. The details about, position sizes and so forth, again, to echo a little of what Laura said, is typically handled outside of the investment policy statement in either a separate set of operations that staff adheres to, or through these discussions where decisions are made at a more micro level in the investment committee meetings. So if you think about the investment policy statement as demonstrating to all external stakeholders as well as future board members the guiding philosophies and processes for your decision making, that really should be the focus of your discussion.
Yeah,
Yeah, my own intuition is they make complete sense about how much needs to be codified in the IPS, so long as the understanding is exactly what you described. I think for any asset class where we have a relatively small allocation, 4% or less, it is certainly not our intention that half of that be dumped with a single manager. So so long as CIO and staff understands that and proceeds with that philosophy, I think we could be comfortable with that.
Yeah, thank you for that discussion. That helps. I'm not really moved by what Laura said. I mean, you can see a steep decline in public markets, then the marks on our private portfolios don't correct at the same time, so they're disproportionately large, and then someone tries to play gotcha, and
yeah. That's unhelpful.
I'm fine with the language as is.
Yeah, and just for the record here, right, and hopefully future CIOs and trustees will work just as well. But we have extensive discussions with Trustee Chandra, given his expertise in the asset class. We've done the same thing with the Police and Fire Board. We are, if not daily, weekly discussions on prospective managers, and we are always open to advice and feedback. And we've started developing a document that, for staff's use, and hopefully, future teams and CIOs will follow the same process.
Okay.
So if we are not codifying in the investment policy statement, I do like your idea on codifying it somewhere else on the limits, even if it is not IPS, just because it's risky nature. In terms of returns, I believe it has been negative, right? Like negative 4.1% since inception. So I do feel like having that control in place, even if it's not in the IPS, maybe somewhere else is appropriate.
Yeah, no, agreed, yeah.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions? If not, we can entertain a motion on item 5B, which is to approve the change to the IPS itself, which would delegate authority. And just to be clear, recall in the past, we have always, as a group, typically in closed session, reviewed every single venture capital investment. If we approve this, this will no longer be the case. This will be delegated just like all other asset classes where we don't necessarily review individual manager investments. So that's the delegation where we would be approving were we to approve this. So,
I have another question. So
Of
in
course.
terms of reporting, how would this be reported to the board? Like if you're selecting an investment manager in this?
You mean after they've made?
After the fact?
They share all of the private asset memos with the IC, and any trustee is welcome to see them as well. They have to be kept confidential.
Okay.
but also when we have our quarterly update, the venture capital asset class is discussed and presented.
Yeah.
And all our investments are listed there.
Yeah, usually
So-
anonymously, but they're all there, right?
Right.
Yeah, and Dinesh and David write memos to trustees. We just cannot discuss it in public because of the confidential nature of these investments.
Okay. Any other questions or comments, insights? Would anyone want to formulate a motion?
I'll move that we approve the revised investment policy statement for the San Jose Federated City Employees Retirement System and resolution number 9122.
And where are we adding that 1% limit?
That's not gonna be in that's not gonna be in either of these documents. These are charter documents. This will be in a separate.
So which document would that be in?
Yeah, so it'll be more a staff policies and procedures document.
Okay.
And which we're working with trustee Chandra on.
Okay, so I suggest that we add to the motion to add that 1% somewhere.
Well,
I mean, it's a part of can that be a part of the motion?
I don't think that can that be a part of the motion, that we're gonna put that?
Well,
as-
it could be an amendment to the motion, I think. Is that what you're
Only
about to
if the
say?
maker accepts it.
If the maker accepts it, you can, or alternatively, you can make a separate motion. In terms of the discussion,
Yeah, so Mark can modify his motion if he'd like to say that in a separate, would you call it, policies and
It's
procedures?
Staff policies and procedures.
so let me be clear, what is the amendment you're suggesting that? are
So we accept the IPS and then add with the control of 1% limit on the delegation of authority.
So that would be in the IPS then, that 1%?
Not in the IPS, but in the policies
In a
and
separate
procedures.
policy.
Yeah, which I
Okay.
thought you couldn't do, but Maytag is saying you can motion that.
Or would that be best done through a separate motion discussing policies and procedures?
So as agendized, the issue, let me clear my throat. So, 1 second. So as agendized, we're only discussing the IPS document here, that's agendized here. However, you can direct staff to bring forward at another agenda item to implement the 1% transaction limits in whatever staff document for the board's review and approval at a later date.
Okay, so with that understanding that amending a separate document is not
On the agenda today.
currently agendized, is that something we can kick forward to a future meeting?
Yeah,
And-
that's
and-
fine, I
and
mean,
have
but
staff
as long
draft it?
as we know that,
Yeah.
there's a control
Yeah.
on that
Mhm. Yeah.
delegation of
Th- th-
authority.
Yeah.
This is our understanding and assumption about how we will implement
Correct.
this change to IPS. I can say that.
Yeah, and apologies, and a little clarification from my previous comment. I had thought trustee Avasti was suggesting that we implement this 1% transaction limit in the IPS. If that was the case, then yes, the
Then we
maker of the
could,
motion
but-
could
Okay.
amend
Okay,
his motion, but if
Mhm.
my understanding from the clarification is that she's seeking a separate document.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so basically what I'm saying is approve the IPS as is. So like delegating the authority for venture capital, but with a control of 1%. And that does not necessarily to be in this document, it can be somewhere else in the appropriate
Yeah.
document, so that's the.
Right.
So we'll have to do that separately, but we're all in agreement.
Yeah.
That comes under future agenda items. So currently, there's a motion to.
So we need a second to
Yeah,
Mark's
there is
motion.
a motion by Mark to.
Okay, I
trust-
second that.
Okay. cut me off there.
Jump to the king.
Yeah, okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from trustees? Any public comments, either here or online? Seeing none, we will have a roll call vote. Trustee Faulkner?
Aye.
Trustee Avasti?
Aye.
Trustee Jennings?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chandra?
Aye.
Trustee Abbott?
Aye.
Trustee Linder?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. So it's essentially the same concept, but we also need to revise the investment committee charter along the same lines to delegate authority for venture capital. So I don't know if we require extensive discussion on this item at this point.
I'm willing to make a motion since it mirrors the last item.
Very good. So we have a motion to amend the
charter.
investment committee charter to delegate authority for venture capital. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from trustee Linder. Any further discussion or public comment? Seeing none. Trustee Faulkner, how do you vote?
Aye.
Trustee Avasti?
Aye.
Trustee Jennings?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chandra?
Aye.
Trustee Abbott?
Aye.
Trustee Linder?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. You have the authority, sir. You have the helm.
Beware what you wish for, right?
I'm scared already. No old business, and we're on to new business. Oral update from our Mr. Flynn.
Good morning. ORS continues to recruit for a senior office specialist position. We have high degree of confidence that will be filled by the end of this month. At our next board meeting, I'll announce that successful recruitment. Recruiting for our accounting position is underway. We've received an overwhelming response, but we expect to have that position filled by April. The city's having a hiring freeze that went into effect on December 16th, which has not impacted the above the recruitments I just discussed because those activities started before the December 16th freeze. The ORS lease expires the end of March. We have an agenda item later today where I will discuss our current status, but then recommend tabling that item for discussion. We are in the middle of numerous procurements. I'm going to go through those in details during the appropriate ad hoc committee update, but for the governance RFP, Barbara and I met this week to finalize our scores to determine our finalists. Yesterday, we met with the governance committee chairs and discussed a schedule to bring the finalists to the next governance committee. The next governance committee is scheduled for 3/6, which we don't believe is going to be enough time to have the finalists attend. So we're looking to reschedule the governance committee for later in the month of March to accommodate the interviews. I sent an email out yesterday resolving all of the trustee 1099s for fiscal year for tax year 2024. There was a discrepancy between last year and this year concerning the taxability of reimbursements. We believe that those have been straightened out, and I just want to give thanks to the accounting team as there was one question asked about one trustee's 1099, and they took it upon themselves to do a reconciliation across all trustee 1099s to identify the more global issue. So for those of you here today, if you have not, please collect your paper 1099 from staff. If you're not here today, we will be mailing them to the trustees who won't be here for this meeting or for the committee meeting. Guaranteed purchasing power for 2024 will be paid for those who qualify this month for both police, fire, and Federated. Last week, I received a cybersecurity update briefing on our cybersecurity findings and remediation work. There has been great progress made based on that briefing, and the remediation is ahead of previously scheduled. I want to give a big thanks to Shilpi, the IT team. Chris sits back in the back of this room very quietly every one of our meetings, but all the other days, Shilpi and Chris and the rest of The IT team is working on these remediations with our cybersecurity consultant and ITD. I'll be looking to have that briefing giving to the board in closed session. We will be ready to do it in March, and I'll work with the chair to schedule that appropriately. I have started discussions with the chairs and the ORS executive team to develop a program for a retreat for the boards this year. We're currently targeting the September meetings. We don't have an agenda developed yet, but it's fair to expect that those meetings will be full days. Typically, we will go into the afternoon on those types of sessions. We already discussed the policies. Just a quick quarterly retirement workshop. It's advertised in our newsletter. We had our quarterly workshop for Federated on the 13th of this month. The next one is scheduled for May, 10:30 a.m. We alternate between morning and afternoons, trying to be flexible for people's schedule. It's a great opportunity to get a general overview as people are approaching retirement. But I will tell you, having attended one of these, they will also do breakout sessions if members have very specific questions to their own concerns. And so it's a really good way for people to get to know what they need to do for retirement or prepare for retirement as they start to approach even thinking about that process.
I can say one. Given that I just went through this, I have found the staff to be very helpful. Sandra as well has been extremely helpful with all the nuances that you go through. It's specific to each individual, family or whatever they're doing. And there's a bit of paperwork, there's a lot of documents. And for some people, it might be a bit overwhelming, but the benefits analysts have done a great job, so I applaud you. I applaud them and thank them for all their hard work. So it works.
Well, I'm glad Sandra's here today to hear that praise. It is a very important decision in most of our members' life, so I'm glad to hear that the staff is there for them. Trustee iPad, we about half of the trustee iPads are enrolled in what we call a mobile device management platform. It's part of our cybersecurity maturity, and so mostly the new iPads are enrolled in this program. We're going to be working with those who do not have an iPad enrolled to enroll it so that we can manage them from a centralized platform. This will come potentially with some additional restrictions, and so if you have any questions or concerns about that, please feel free to discuss with me, but the admin team will start to coordinate with those who need to be enrolled, as it takes about a half a day, and so after a board meeting, we'll take your iPad and then we'll pick up later on. An email went out citywide yesterday for requesting for eligible candidates to file their application with the Office of the City Clerk for our soon-to-be vacated employee representative. Applications must be received no earlier than February 18th or later than March 11th. This will put this board on a timeline that coincides with our March board meeting to do interviews, so it'll be a very quick turnaround. We have I think the prescribed days is 12 days to give response to City Council, to make recommendation to City Council, and then City Council will get them on a future agenda for their interview and ultimate appointment. Lastly, or I don't know if it's lastly, but we beginning of the year, we implemented something called Contact the CEO on our website. We added a new button that allows a member to have a direct contact with me, requesting them to share their positive experiences, constructive feedback, or concerns or issues. And I only mention it now because we received our first email this past weekend from a concerned member, and so we did highlight it in the last newsletter that went out. And I'm hoping that this it was something we had implemented in my previous life, and for members who were frustrated by a process, it gave them a direct contact that allowed to shine lights in areas that maybe I don't get to focus on every day. And so it's something we brought here, and so far, low volume, which is okay. But hopefully it gives our members a communication avenue that they didn't have before. With that, I will take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Are there any questions from trustees and/or the public? No comment online. I'd just like to thank Benji specifically, who has worked with me to understand more fully the 1099 and what we do report there and do not. I didn't quite understand it until this year. And now it finally makes sense why the dollars change every quarter a little bit.
It appeared more accurate, so thank you.
Yeah. And we can file now we can file our taxes. Great.
Nice work, John.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
All right, if there are no other questions, then we'll move forward to item 7B, which is a oral update from our City Council liaison. Councilmember Foley.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Since I was here, I think I got a promotion to vice mayor.
I'm
but
sorry, I was
that's
just
quite all right.
I was just advised of that.
It's quite all right. I think I was council member last time I was here, Spencer.
You're still a council member, too.
That's true.
Okay, all
I
right.
still.
Okay.
I mean, some of our residents. Well, did you give up your job? Do we have to have a special election? No, I'm still there. Sorry. First, I had a really nice coffee with the chair. We got to get to know each other a little bit and talk about my role as liaison to Federated, and I'm actually very excited to see what this retirement board does. I served so long on the other side that it's really nice to be here and see what Federated does, and you do things a little bit differently, and that's neither good nor bad. That's you just do it differently, and so I look forward to getting to know that a little bit. As far as I want to thank, before I forget, Julie Jennings for all of her years of service, both to the Federated Board, but on a larger scale to the City of San Jose and our residents. Julie and my team have a meeting every year where we go over the budgets that is available for my district. She does that with all of the districts to know how we can spend our dollars. And in the early years, I had no idea where my money was, or even if I had any, I didn't even know anything about it, but Julie's very patient and helpful in explaining all of that and helping us through that. So I truly appreciate all you've done for my team and all of City Council and for the rest of the departments too. So thank you.
I appreciate that. And since next Friday is my last official day, I just to rest assured, I have been training an interim for my position for the last year, really, she's the one who does the Park Trust Fund.
Yeah.
So all the developer fees, where a lot of the money comes from.
Great.
Yeah, and so we plan to keep everything moving along, and next year you should be just as good as gold. We'll still have the meetings with you, even though it's a biannual process. So your district is looking good, and Dan Greeley is a great guy who really takes that effort. So the team should always work well with him. But thank you for the kind words.
I appreciate that, Julie, and as someone who has 2 more years on council and then I retire, I wish you well in the next adventure of your life, and I hope you look at it as I hate that term, even retirement. It's just the next adventure.
It's the next adventure.
Yeah.
It's the next term, right?
Right.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. A couple other things is we are starting in the budget process, and you've all heard that we have a $60 million deficit that we need to find a way to balance that, and there's several strategies. One, we did implore or implement a hiring freeze. It does not affect all departments. It does not affect police and fire. There are other departments that it does not affect as well, but it affects the majority of the departments, I would say, certainly mostly on the Federated side. Some of the strategies we're looking at is we'll be using a budget stabilization fund, which is a little like a reserve fund. We won't use all of it because it's not prudent to use all of our reserve funds. The other thing we're looking at is reallocating Measure E funds to address some of the costs and expenses involved in moving the unhoused into sheltered housing. The reason for the deficit is this is not new news, but sales tax revenue is down and property tax, the amount of properties that are sold, that revenue is down as well, and that has triggered the loss in our revenue and our projected budget. We already had considered a deficit for this coming fiscal year. This is just much larger than we had anticipated. The goal is to avoid layoffs. We truly are committed to that, and so we're looking at programs and retaining the services that we have and using strategies that won't impact either our employee groups or our residents to too much of a greater extent. We might be able to do that this year. I don't know if we'll be able to do that next year. We'll have to see. Another thing of interest is the District 3 vacancy. We have filled that position with Carl Salas. He's the interim appointment who fills that council member position until the special election has been concluded. The special election is running right now. If you live in District 3, you have people knocking on your doors on a regular basis, I'm sure. A lot of candidates. There will be a primary election in April and then a general election in June. It's not likely, if someone got 50% plus one in the primary, then the election would be over there then, but that is not likely given the amount of people that we have in the running. I think it's 6 or 8 people running for the position right now. So that means that the interim appointment, Carl Salas, will be there likely through July, because the vote will be concluded at the end of June, but then it has to be certified, and we take time off in July, so it's likely that Carl will be in, I should say Councilmember Salas will be there until August 1st, and that's when the new council member will come in. Just to give you some background on Councilmember Salas, he's lived in the area for 40 years, very well involved and committed to downtown San Jose. He's a tremendous advocate for downtown San Jose and will be very good at representing this pretty vibrant and active community. And I think that's it for me at the moment. Thank you. Unless anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Are there any questions from trustees?
You still haven't gotten vice chair from me down, but you got vice mayor that fast?
Might take a while.
It gets there eventually. Give me a couple of years. Any questions from trustees? Any questions from the public at large? Nobody online. So thank you again, and we'll proceed to the next agenda item, which is 7C, which is discussion adoption of the COLA limits for our 415B
Sure.
retirees.
The approval of this resolution is to set the cost of living adjustment for those who are grandfathered under 415B. It's an annual resolution that gets put in front of this board for approval. It allows us to set based on cost of living adjustments, plus if that's under 3%, it allows them to pull from previously banked limits that were over 3% in prior years, up to a total of 3%.
Okay, so it's the algorithm itself is cut and dried and clearly said.
Right.
So if
Can I
there's,
ask why we have to approve this annually if is there a way, since it's
Yeah, it does seem
algorithmic,
a
it's
bit
algorithmically
superfluous.
set?
I believe it's to set the percentage, and so the percentage can change every year. I mean, although it's calculated,
It's a formula that we
Right.
already agreed to as a prior board.
I'll investigate that for.
Maytag, do you have a
yeah.
thought on this?
We can look into it. I'm not
Okay.
ready to speak on it right now.
okay,
I'll make a motion to approve for
Okay.
today's purposes.
very good. We have a second from trustee Abbott. Is there any further discussion or comments? Seeing none. Trustee Faulkner?
Aye.
Trustee Avasti?
Aye.
Trustee Jennings?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chandra?
Aye.
Trustee Abbott? Trustee Linder?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. COLA is approved. Item 7D. This is a discussion to negotiate and approve
Release.
our lease. And I think, did you want to defer this item?
So if you'll permit me just a few comments, we have made, this has been one of the, I had a recent meeting with one of our new council members, and he said, what keeps you up at night? Well, this is one of the items that kept me up at night. And what I can tell you is that with all the work that Barbara and Roberto did before I got here, and the drive since I've gotten here, I think we are at a very good place. But I don't want to get ahead of the discussion that we're having with the landlord right now. These were the terms that were available in this memo were our counter offer to their last offer. We just received late yesterday what we believe is something that we're going to be able to work with and be able to get an actual resolution and discussion in front of you at the March meeting.
But it's different than this.
It's going to be, it'll be a little bit higher than this.
Oh.
So
So then we're tabling?
I recommend that we
Sorry,
table this.
sorry, Debbie had a question.
My question is, I know at one point you and I had a discussion that you, currently the space that you occupy isn't enough to have everyone in the office at the same time.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if in the terms that you're negotiating, that whether there's gonna be more space that you're picking up as well, so that that could happen.
Sure. The terms that we are negotiating includes an additional 2,200 square feet in the building next to our boardroom on the 5th floor. We believe we'll be able to fit approximately 13 people in that space, which gives the teams enough space to spread out. They've been doubling up in their locations, and we have a couple of floaters, as well as we have a few vacancies. And so that has allowed us to operate with core Tuesdays where everybody's in the office, but space is limited, and we have zero room. We don't have any room for growth because we don't have enough seats for everybody today.
Thank you.
Right, so we can just
Table.
Table this item, we don't need to vote for that. Okay, so it is tabled. Great, go to 7E, which is discussion action to amend our legal services agreement to provide a few more dollars to Reed Smith.
So if I may?
Please.
The contract with Reed Smith is due to expire at the end of this fiscal year, June 30th. This doesn't change any of that. This is to bring the not-to-exceed amount of the contract in alignment with the budget that had already been previously approved by our boards. So this is just bringing that not-to-exceed amount in alignment with what we believe we will spend by the end of this year. I think the important thing to note is that this is under the budget that was previously approved. So this is just, in my mind, this is just administrative work.
Okay, but this is the second time we've been asked to approve an extension of the amount. Are we spending more than we, I mean, I understand it's under budget, or are we spending somehow more than we expected in some sense?
I do think that not just in the current months, but in some past months, there have been greater than expected expenditures in a few extra projects. Some of the litigation that we're doing, some of the closed session items that we discussed today, right? All of that compounds into what we anticipate the cost will be. But I think the most important thing is that this is under the anticipated cost based on the budget that was approved last year.
Okay, understood.
Yeah, I just have a silly question. Why would the not-to-exceed amount be less than the budgetarily approved amount?
Well, the not-to-exceed amount is part of, it's part of the contract that got approved, I assume.
Okay, I can explain this. Sorry, I'll cut to the chase. Not to exceed, that's a contract. So you can have a contractual amount, and the contractual amount is you can spend X to that.
Okay.
But that's the life of the contract. Then you have a budget, which is where you, and that's by fiscal year.
Okay.
You know, Barbara and I.
And then to put more complexity, sometimes they have service agreements. So service agreements are little snippets off of the master agreement.
Yes.
And then you live to that as well.
Right.
Which you can have different funding sources when you do capital projects versus
Okay.
ORS.
Are you sure you're gonna be able to retire from all this?
You know, I am a wealth of knowledge,
You are.
and so I am always available to answer
We
questions
will
just for
appreciate
that. But eventually,
Mhm.
in time, my knowledge is going to be outdated.
Okay.
It makes total sense. I mean,
Yes.
but you were gonna ask Barbara something, because I'm happy to.
No, I was just gonna say, one of the things that we're discussing is that once our budget is approved, I think that might it'll connect the dots a little bit better, that once the budgets are approved by both boards and city council, that we then take that opportunity to bring back the contracts that should have augmented not to exceeds, if that were required.
I was thinking we would do that, but not necessarily bring it up now, but I'm glad you did. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So any further discussion from trustees? Would someone like to formulate a motion to approve the
Also
increase?
motion.
We have a motion from trustee Jennings, a second.
I second.
I'm going to give that to trustee Avasti. And any further discussion, any public comment? Seeing none, we will vote. Trustee Faulkner?
Aye.
Trustee Avasti?
Aye.
Trustee Jennings?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chandra?
Aye.
Trustee Abbott?
Aye.
Trustee Linder?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The extension is approved. Committee reports. Investment Committee has not met since December 11th. We will meet next week. Audit Committee has not met since August 15th.
We meet today.
We meet today. Governance Committee has not met since December 19th. And it sounds like
Yeah.
the March 6th meeting is, you're going to change that date on that, is what I just
We're
heard.
gonna align the date with the interviews.
Right. Disability. Chair Linder, anything to report here?
Well, you took the actions that we took in the meeting today. So
Okay.
we did have a couple moved along, and we are looking at, we're just trying to sort out whether we can have to meet in April or whether we can
Okay.
meet in May, and it depends on the workload that we hear from the staff.
Okay.
And that was that. That's why you have a TBD there.
Okay. We need to receive minutes, accept minutes, so accepted. We don't need to vote on that, do we? We don't need a vote to accept the minutes?
No, you
Okay.
receive
No.
and file.
Okay, receive and file. Joint personnel have not met since last April. We'll meet again next April. Legal Services Joint Ad Hoc Committee. Trustees Abbott and Chandra, how are we doing with the RFP?
Go for it.
Would you like me to?
Please, and then, I missed the last meeting, so the two of you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Go, John.
Okay,
Well, we'll let trustee Abbott amend whatever.
of course.
Debbie will improve what John says.
Thank you.
Add to it.
Trustee Abbott will speak on
The
it.
Legal Services Ad Hoc Committee, we've met numerous times. We are in the depths of reviewing the proposals, scoring the proposals, determining finalists, and scheduling interviews. I think I'm not sure if I told this board yet, but we had 8 respondents for legal services across the 6 different service areas. Every area had at least 2 proposals submitted. We, Fiduciary and General Counsel, we're scheduling interviews with the JAHC next month. DRO and Disabilities, we expect to see a resolution in front of this board next month. The Investment Committee, the investment staff are working to schedule interviews with staff. And for Tax Council, admin is currently working with the consultants the proposers to schedule the finalist interviews also next month. So I would say generally we're on a very good path to being able to complete, being able to bring the request for authorization to negotiate and to execute contracts in the May meeting, which will give us through June to finalize those.
I think you summed it up really well, and I just think that there's been a lot of really excellent work done by the staff to solicit, and make sure that we had a lot of applicants that came in. The responses to proposals that I saw were very thorough and very good, and so I think we may have a tough decision ahead of us for some of them, but I'm really pleased with the response that's happened.
I'd rather have
The
that.
interview date
Yeah.
has been nailed down. It's like March 9th or something like that. That's what I have in my
Yeah.
calendar.
We're still, we still need confirmation from one
Okay.
one of the
Okay.
trustees.
Got it.
Yeah.
Just curious, you said we've had 2 respondents for fiduciary, 2 respondents for general counsel.
I think, I'd have to go check. One of them we had 2 and one of them we had 3.
Okay.
We
so-
had at least 2 for every service.
Yeah.
Right, I was just wondering, well, it's 2 and 3, then I was wondering if they were the same firms that responded to both, or it's different firms. Obviously, if there's 3, there is, so.
Right, so there, 2 of the same firms
There were 2
applied for
firms,
both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
There
and
were- I
then,
recall
and then
2
a
firms
third
for both, and then a third
And
for
then there
came
was
in,
a third.
okay.
Yeah.
And we had multiple proposers submit for multiple of the services.
Mhm.
Not all of them did for, I don't think we had anybody do it for all.
Across the board, okay.
But, I would say short of maybe some of the tax council,
Mhm.
we had, everybody did
Great.
multiple.
Right, great. Well, I'm pleased that we're having multiple applicants for all posts.
It's good to have
and,
decisions to make.
And that it's moving forward apace. So, any other questions or comments from trustees? Any public comment? Seeing none? Okay. Actuarial services.
If you'll permit me a similar update.
I will.
Okay, the Joint Ad Hoc Committee for Actuarial Services hasn't met since authorization was given for the staff to move forward. What I can tell you is that we received five proposals from different actuarial firms, which is more than twice as many as we received last time. And the staff are currently going through the scoring of those proposals. We're meeting with staff on Monday to finalize a recommendation to the JAHC, and we're looking to meet with the JAHC, I believe, Monday, not this Monday, no, it is this Monday, so that we can determine what our next steps will be. So, part of what this board authorized the JAHC to do was to determine the right way to go through this procurement. And so we said last time we only had 2 respondents, so it was fairly simple move forward. Now that we have 5, there could be more complicated. And so we'll bring that to the JHC, make recommendations, and take guidance from them on how they want us to move forward.
Okay, great.
Sorry, this is the 24th we're meeting?
Not your JHC.
okay.
So there's the
Actuarial
legal
services.
services JHC, and then there's their actuarial
We're
services.
we're doing a lot of hiring right now.
We moved on.
And I apologize, I think there was some miscommunication from me to the admin team when we were starting to do some of the scheduling. We used the JHC interchangeably, and
I'm sure I just wasn't paying attention
No.
closely, my bad.
Okay.
Prachi, I know we haven't met, and anything you'd like to add?
I'm looking forward to the Monday meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've got some good candidates.
Okay, great. Who doesn't look forward to meeting actuaries? Education and training, we have a number of items coming up. I think hopefully we'll see some of you at the General Assembly, which is coming up in another week and a half. Do we get any kind of travel packets with that, or how do
They
we know where?
will come
what our-
out closer to the event.
Okay, or reservations or whatever we're staying? Okay.
If you have questions, you can let us know,
Sure.
and we can.
I just don't know exactly where we're going. Proposed agenda items, we did discuss agendizing reviewing a procedure document for the investment staff on venture capital sub-allocations, manager allocations. I think next time is going to be a very full meeting. We will have a quarterly investments update. We will have interviews of potential new trustee to seat in Trustee Jennings' seat, and it sounds like a number of other items. So plan on a full day. I'm not going to get you.
Question.
Sure.
Will we vote as a board who we want, or how does that work?
I believe the answer is yes.
That's how it works.
We forward it on to the council?
It's you're voting on a recommendation to City Council.
And then
So assuming we have more than one candidate, or even with one candidate, the board still has the ability to interview that one or many candidates And then the goal is, at that meeting, we develop a recommendation that then gets submitted to city council. City council will then agendize it and get it on their future board meeting for approval. It'll be touch and go whether or not we'll be able to do that in April, based on the experience that we had for our active police and fire. But
So
hopefully,
normally, if if it expired and then it was, going to be filled, that would be an election. And that's how I was voted in.
Election by the members.
even-
Yeah.
Yeah, by
Yeah.
members, by active, right? Active employees.
Currently-
You're the
You're
active
the active
trustee.
seat, Julie.
Yeah.
Hence
Well,
your retirement.
I always get confused by the active and inactive. I think active is like an active retiree, but it's not, right?
No.
So anyhow, so like Prachi and I are both employees. And that was an election, even though no one ran against me, so it's kind of silly, but it still went out as an election.
Right,
But
because
because my position
it's
is
a
not
midterm
vacated.
replacement. It's
By
different
the
procedure.
term, then the city clerk said that the trustees then can vote the person in.
Fill out your term, basically.
Yeah, fill out the term. Yeah.
Right, so would there then be an election after that person completes, so there would be an
Yeah.
election
They just
when
fill
your
out the-
term is ended, which is,
On 27,
In 27,
2027.
okay.
So they're kind of an interim
Yeah,
replacement.
for a while,
Okay, but that's another 2 years,
yeah.
Yeah.
so. Okay, any other proposed agenda items? Seeing and hearing none, we are adjourned.